that folk music that you play there? What is that? How do you call that folk music?
I think it was Studs Terkel who asked Big Bill Broonzy, did he consider his blues music to be folk music? And Big Bill says, well, never heard no horse.
Don't hesitate. It could be your ticket to a new tomorrow.
Ah, let the circle be wide round the fireside, and we'll soon make room for you. Let your heart have no fear, for there's no strangers here, just friends that you never knew. Shake the hand of the man from the far distant land, meet him and treat him well. And that young girl so fair with the wind in her hair, she's got a story to tell. So let the circle be wide round the fireside, and we'll soon make room for you. Let your heart have no fear, for there's no strangers here, just friends that you never knew. We will travel along on the wings of a song, with a mind that is open and free. If we close our eyes to the other side, we're just half of what we could be. So let the circle be wide round the fireside, and we'll soon make room for you. Let your heart have no fear, for there's no strangers here, just friends that you never knew. There are songs to be sung, there are rafters to be rung, there is reason to rosin your bow. There are stories of old, and there's new ones to be told, for to carry away when you go. So let the circle be wide round the fireside, and we'll soon make room for you. Let your heart have no fear, for there's no strangers here, just friends that you never knew. So we'll pass the bottle round, and we'll drink another round, that our friendship will always remain. For how can you tell when we say our farewells, when will we all meet again? So let the circle be wide round the fireside, and we'll soon make room for you. Let your heart have no fear, for there's no strangers here, just friends that you never knew. Ooh.
The show is Horses Sing None of It. My name is Ralph Litwin, and our guest today is renowned Irish singer-songwriter Tommy Sands. Nice to have you on the show again.
Delighted to be here.
I'd like to read a quote from Pete Seeger about you, which that song really expressed the sentiment that he's communicating in this quote about you. Tommy Sands has achieved that difficult but wonderful balance between knowing and loving the traditions of his home and being concerned with the future of the whole world. It's a nice quote from a great man.
Pete's a very generous man, these words, and a wonderful man. Great man who's inspired us all.
I agree.
I'll sing you a song from, I come from a small village in County Down. County Down is in the north of Ireland, just a few miles from the border. And back a few years ago, a lot of people were leaving with no work, with the troubles that were coming. And I wrote this song about some friends who left and the impact that they had in leaving to the people who were left behind. followed them down to the boat. They didn't want me to come. They said, there must be no crying. I'll be long enough alone, I said, and I watched my two strong sons. And they were children again, with the tears in their eyes. And there were tears of leaving and loving. And there were tears of dreaming. When you're out walking and there's no one near you, but a voice keeps calling and you hear your name. It's not the leaves or the whispering breezes, it's me that's calling you back again. Oh, can you hear me? Oh, can you hear me as you roam through lonely London town? When evening's falling, you'll hear me calling, come on home, County Down. Do you remember the fiddlers playing songs and stories the whole night long? It's little than that you thought of leaving. It seems so strange now that you are gone. Oh, can you hear me? Oh, can you hear me as you roam through lonely London town? When evening's falling, you'll hear me calling, come on home, County Down. I'm always dreaming that things are changing and that they're building a factory tall, and the young ones needed again in Newry, but I still need you most of all. Oh, can you hear me? Oh, can you hear me as you roam through lonely London town? When evening's falling, you'll hear me calling, come on home, County Down. Come on home to the County Down. I think one of the very first folk songs ever I heard in my life, it came out of a wet batteried wireless. And we were singing folk songs ourselves, of course, at the time, but we didn't know they were called folk songs until someone came along and said they're folk songs. And this man on the radio said this is definitely a folk song. So if it came from the radio, I knew it must have been a folk song. But actually it came from America too. And maybe you might remember this when your face might slacken into a grin of recognition whenever you hear it. I'll be watching for the white teeth of recognition. It was all about, see if you remember it. It's a frog with a curtain and heated riding. It's a frog with a curtain and heated riding. It's a frog with a curtain and heated riding. The sword left his school by his side. Actually, it was a song about a frog getting married to a mouse. And even as a child, I thought that fairly complicated. Certainly from a religious viewpoint. Never mind the physiological or psychological effects that it might have. But actually, it is the first time I have come across this phenomenon of a mixed marriage in song. And I thought the marriage between the frog and the mouse must have been a very complicated situation. But it was only after a brother of mine got married to one of the other sort in the Northern Ireland context that I realised that the mixed marriage between the frog and the mouse is actually very simple in comparison. And this is a song about a mixed marriage, and maybe someone said one time if there were more mixed marriages there might be less bigotry around the place. But this song is about the big decision on the night before the negotiations take place. It talks about talks. The conversation might go something like this. Oh lady, can I take you walking? We'll get married then. Maybe we can do some talking. We'll get married then. First I must know where you come from. Where do you go of a Sunday morning? What do you dig with, darling? We'll get married then. We'll get married then. We'll get married then. When Santa Claus shaves off his whiskers, we'll get married then. That's the chorus, by the way. We'll get married then. We'll get married then. When Santa Claus shaves off his whiskers, we'll get married then. When little babies do not cry, we'll get married then. When politicians do not lie, we'll get married then. Well, I'm not one to be contrary, but what's your stance on the Virgin Mary? Is your God shave or is he barely? We'll get married then. We'll get married then. We'll get married then. When Santa Claus shaves off his whiskers, we'll get married then. Articles 2 and 3 must go, and we'll get married then. The government of Ireland act also, we'll get married then. Aren't we getting slightly technical? Couldn't we be a bit more practical? If I thought you really liked me, we'll get married then. We'll get married then. We'll get married then. When Santa Claus shaves off his whiskers, we'll get married then. You know I love you dearly, we'll get married then. No matter what the neighbors say, we'll get married then. Well, we can't stop the world from fighting, but love can start the world uniting. How about tonight at midnight, we'll get married then. We'll get married then. We'll get married then. When Santa Claus shaves off his whiskers, we'll get married then. We'll get married then. We'll get married then. When Santa Claus shaves off his whiskers, we'll get married then. All right, Santa, start shaving.
Terrific.
I grew up on a small farm in County Down. My father was a small farmer. He played the fiddle, and my mother played the accordion. And we were surrounded by people from all religions. Well, that's not true. Just two, Catholics and Protestants, which is only the one when you think about it. But people would come to our house at night because we didn't have electricity in the house. We didn't have running water either. Well, the only running water we had was running to the well with a bucket for it. Or as my mother used to say, take two, it'll balance you. But people came to pass the time in our house after the work was done in the fields. And I suppose it was back in the 1970s. The Troubles really hadn't come to the place where we lived. We could hear explosions going off just 6 miles away in Uri. And we could hear the Lambeg drums being played, particularly loud, just a few fields away. But I remember one night in the summertime when the roses were out along the hedges on the Ryan Road, someone said, no matter how close the Troubles get to us here, it won't change us because we're friends and we know each other. But 1 year from that day, many things had changed. And it took me almost 10 years to write a song about it, because I felt that what happened almost summed up war anywhere, where ordinary people like ourselves can get divided up into little groups, be we different religions or different colours or different nations, and told we're different human beings. The song is called There Were Roses. My song for you this evening, it's not to make you sad, nor for adding to the sorrows of this troubled northern land. But lately I've been thinking, and it just won't leave my mind, to tell you of two friends one time who were both good friends of mine. Alan Bell from Bena, he lived just across the fields. Great man for the music and the dancing and the reels. O'Malley came from South Armagh to court young Alice Fair, and we'd often meet on the Ryan Road, and the laughter filled the air. There were roses, roses, there were roses, and the tears of the people ran together. Though Alan he was Protestant and Sean was Catholic born, it never made a difference, for the friendship it was strong. And sometimes in the evening, when we heard the sound of drums, we said it won't divide us, we will always be the one. For the ground our fathers ploughed in, the soil it is the same, and the places where we say our prayers have just got different names. We talked about the friends who died, and we hoped there'd be no more. It's little then we realized the tragedy in store. There were roses, roses, there were roses, and the tears of the people ran together. It was on a Sunday morning when the awful news came round. Another killing has been done just outside Newry town. He knew that Alan danced up there, he knew he liked the band, but when we heard that he was dead, we just could not understand. We gathered at the graveside on that cold and rainy day, and the minister, he closed his eyes and he prayed for no revenge. And all the ones who knew him from along the Ryan Road, we bowed our heads and we said a prayer for the resting of his soul. There were roses, roses, there were roses, and the tears of the people ran together. While fear had filled the countryside, there was fear in every home, and a car of death came prowling round the lonely Ryan Road. A Catholic would be killed tonight to even up the score. Oh Christ, it's young O'Malley that they're taking from the door. Alan was my friend, he cried, he begged them with his fear. But centuries of hatred have ears that cannot hear. An eye for an eye was all that filled their mind, and another eye for another eye till every one is blind. There were roses, roses, there were roses, song for you this evening, it's not to make you sad, nor for adding to the sorrows of this troubled northern land. But lately I've been thinking, and it just won't leave my mind, to tell you of two friends one time who were both good friends of mine. I don't know where the moral is or where the song should end, but I wonder just how many wars are fought between good friends, and those who give the orders are not the ones to die. It's Bell and O'Malley and the likes of you and I. There were roses, roses, there were roses, and the tears of the people ran together. There were roses, roses, there were roses. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Such a moving song.
You know, there are many sad songs in the Irish tradition, and you know, there was an old tradition in Ireland that during sad times, musicians would play slow, sad laments. And the idea, I remember going around it with my father to many wakes, and he played the fiddle, and he would take out the fiddle at the wake, and there'd be hardened men with weathered faces and thorns in their fingers from tying corn and tying hay in the fields. Whenever he started to play the fiddle, slowly they would start to cry. And I realized that the sad songs were never meant to make you sad, but to take the sadness out, to leave enough space for the dance of life to return. And one of the reasons why I wrote the song was for the people in my locality who somehow we'd lost our way of talking. We couldn't talk to each other because there's so much suspicion. But things are much better now, and there's a great hope. I'll finish off with this one. It's a song which I sang during the week of the Good Friday Agreement, and I went with 20 Catholic children, 20 Protestant children, a couple of lambeg drummers and fiddle players. We went up to the talks in Stormont where the politicians were talking, because the politicians were very nervous that week. They were worried not about their opponents but about their supporters. And for years it was like watching two buses meeting on a narrow bridge, and neither driver wanted to give way because he didn't want to let down his passengers. And it was only when the passengers got up and went to the driver and said, "Look, it's all right, you can go back a little bit, because we all want to go forward." And it is only then that the political landscape began to change, and it has been changing ever since. But whenever the politicians heard us singing outside the talks, they come out and sang with us. And it was so good to see people like David Trimble and Jerry Kelly actually singing, and Jerry Adams singing the same chorus. So if they can sing that chorus, you can sing it even better, with harmonies galore. The chorus goes, when we dance, we'll dance together. When we cry, we'll hold each other. When we love forever, down by the Lagan side. The Lagan is a river which runs through Belfast. I thought she was a vision that stopped me with her smile. Down by the river, we walked along in style. She says, "You're welcome back again. Won't you stay a while down by the Lagan side? And when we dance, we'll dance together. When we cry, we'll hold each other. And when we love, we'll love forever. Down by the Lagan side." I said, "Who owns that music that's so full of joy and pain? that the pipers and the harpers and the lambeg drummers play. She said, who owns the teardrops falling in the rain down by the Lagan side? And when we dance, we'll dance together. When we cry, we'll hold each other. And when we love, we'll love forever. Down by the Lagan side. And do you not remember, we once walked side by side, and the bells of Belfast City sang harmony and pride. The past, it has been taken, but the future is yours and mine. Down by the Lagan side. And when we dance, we'll dance together. When we cry, we'll hold each other. And when we love, we'll love forever. Down by the Lagan side. Thank you very much for having me on the program. I enjoyed it very much. Maybe you'll sing that chorus with us at the end. When we dance, we'll dance together. When we cry, we'll hold each other. And when we love, we'll love forever. Down by the line.